jab, uppercut, leave you laid out on the floor. Try to duck and roll, hit and miss, now you counting stars. Should've practiced more, should've hit the mask, get out there more. Claim that you're the best. You gotta show me, son. Actions over words, baby boy. Is you real or what? Talking way too much, world come. Back sports, talking way too much, world come. Back sports, talking way too much, world come. Back sports,
Yo, shout out to the hottest chat in the MF and Game A side official. No negotiation needed, period. You already know WCS is back with another one. I know boxing is about to take off. I just wanted to drop in here and talk about something that a lot of people should understand. At the end of the day, when you talk about boxing, right? You have a lot of people that will talk about boxing from afar, right? They don't go to fight, so they have no idea on what's actually going on internally. And when you try to tell some of these individuals, I wouldn't even call them journalists, because for me, a journalist wears many hats. First of all, you have to put forth the effort. You have to be motivated enough to cover or basically invest time into whatever you're trying to do research on, whether it be sports, whatever. Your journalistic skills have to be creative, and it has to come in a variety for you to have people to basically tune in to what you have going on. I feel that a journalist has to be a person that's able to retrieve an abundance of information, decipher what is important, what isn't, make a choice within that to say, okay, do I talk about this particular subject, being that it might be a little bit controversial, or do I play it safe and talk about this half of the information that I have? Or do I blend it all together? What's going to work for the overall end game? The end game is viewership. That's what media is all about, viewership. This on here is not viewership. This is just I would say a cubicle or bubble or a small grid where people can communicate to each other, right? And talk about like names, topics, whether it be boxing, MMA, BJJ, any sport, NFL, basketball, whatever. They can talk about it all day long. That doesn't mean they're journalists, though. It's very few that I can call an actual journalist. Just because people want to look at views, that doesn't mean you're not a journalist. When I initially started this out several years ago, I was writing, photography, videography, running my own site that's still up there. I'm gonna be honest, I don't edit it every single day, but I do have a website. My shit is trademarked, and I covered fights. I can't tell you how many from the regional level all the way up to the top tier, but I consider that to be part of what I did back in the day, even with, being in communication. I consider that to be a journalist. I wrote my own articles on my site and edit them also. A lot of work, but at least that is your content and you are the one who edited it. So you have to really hold yourself accountable at the end of the day. Something I learned out there in these boxing waterways, right? The reason why I say waterways is because you can drown out there, because you're not the only one who's covering boxing. Now I'm specifically talking about boxing because it's a change that's happened over the last couple of years with boxing media. You know, outside of when I was out there, many other people was out there. I believe that they're trying their best to entice other individuals that may be in other sectors to basically come over and attempt to interview, attempt to blend in their audience with the boxing to broaden out the branches, the fruits, you know what I'm saying, the tree of life out into other spectrums that may not be attuned to boxing. You know what I'm saying? I think it's something going on where they're bringing these industry people into the sport of boxing and just freestyling and just having them trying to attach boxing to the culture. You notice boxing has never really been a part of the culture. Boxing has never really been that sport. When and how many boxers do you see on TV? How many boxers do you see really getting constant airplay? This shit, for some reason, has taken a turn for the worse. It's not just with the journalists, it's with the bigger, larger media segues. I recently read an article, and we're about to go through that article with boxingscene.com. Boxing Scene is, I consider, one of the best. I'm talking about top tier that you can go to and pretty much get your information. Shout out to boxingscene.com. They're nothing like Boxing News 24 and all this other, propaganda that's spewed. Nothing like that. The way their journalistic cadence is and writing their articles is absolutely perfect. They do not invest all this time in stripping down fighters, but they are, and they have ran into an obstacle, and that obstacle is censorship. That obstacle is politics. Real talk. See, it was some times where the conversation arose when you're trying to explain people that, boxing journalism is way larger than social media. People get on here and say that I can talk about this and that and everything else about boxing. But what I like the most about journalism is that the ones who have boots on the ground, and you get to go to the schedule, you get to attend the schedule. The schedule is they got a presser this day. The next day they might have open workouts, and then after open workouts you might have a media scrum, and then when that open workout is over, you have weigh-ins. After weigh-ins, you may have a mini media scrum, right? Not to mention, this is look, this is all encapsulating the time management factor, your calendar on fight week. A person like me, I used to show up on fight week around Tuesday or Wednesday, and the fight was on Saturday. Why? Because I wanted to go fishing for interviews before they actually got to the presser. I like talking to fighters while I caught them walking around and they wasn't stressing. See, you try to turn these cats on the game on how to get these interviews, because either way it goes, if you get an interview with them stepping out the ring, doing open workout or whatever, or you get them just walking, it's an interview, right? With that said is, we're going to miss those times because the last couple of years has changed tremendously with boxing media. Tremendously. It is all over the place. I mean, Mike Carpenter's X account was purchased by, another entity. For what? I mean, wasn't that his own personal account? They went up here and scooped up a primary source of information to the U.S. And now they're running the account. That's just one. That's just one. Then it got to a point where you have fighters that began to get the orders, telling these certain people that no, certain people can't get credentials, can't get credentials. You have fighters stopping boxing media from being approved for a fight card. I mean, the whole point is to come to the fight and cover the fight. But every promotion isn't the same. You go to the promotion and you think it's going to be all nice and calm. And you have people talking to you like you don't know what you're doing, like you know, some type of, child, like you're subordinate to them. Just because you are approved for credentials doesn't mean I'm going in there forgetting who I was at the door, and I'm under your authority for the rest of the fight week. No. What I did find out is that some fighters will, don't want you asking certain questions. They'll let the whoever's running it, the administrative logistic handlers, they would tell you, hey, this boxer right here, we're going to do a media scrum. Do not ask them about this. And this will be something that is hopping, very hot. It's hopping around the media hot, like a hot potato. And they'll say, so-and-so don't want to talk about that. Anybody who asks that against our freaking request, we will revoke your credentials and you will be this, that, and the other. And people's like, huh? Revoke our credentials? You can't escort us out of nowhere because we can pay for a ticket. You don't own the whole damn casino. You don't own the whole arena. What are you talking about? But that's what it was coming to. Unfortunately for BoxingScene.com, they recently had a situation where we're feeling the squeeze of Riyadh season. Riyadh season are extending their freaking tentacles over here to the U.S. and attempting to extract certain media entities. So potentially, I'm assuming, so they can provide their own media, redistribution with a little bit of strict accommodation. That means I need some media over here to push the narratives that I want to hear, to talk about boxing that I want from the ring or whatever Riyadh season. I want somebody. And I've been through this. I tell people all the time, I've been through this. A lot of people, it's hard to convince them of anything today. These cats, just because it's something that they don't achieve, they don't believe it. When I was on YouTube, I was approached by UK media. They wanted me to write articles for them when I was really out here just taking my time and processing. They wanted me to write articles. They was gonna pay me, man. I was out here talking about Deontay Wilder heavy. I wasn't using any type of vulgarity at the time. I was just doing live streams on Facebook here and there, and I was writing articles, and I guess they was paying attention. And look, forget about YouTube. I wasn't even on YouTube like that, but they approached me, and they really was trying to get me to work. Now I see people now attaching themselves. They have a media umbilical cord that they have sub media, I would say micro media outlets that's attached to the hub, and they allow certain content creators over here on YouTube to be beneath their umbrella and put out media and do live streams. They give you a quota, how many live streams to do per day, and you get paid for it. Me, they wanted me as media, writing articles, because I had journalistic skills. I still got it, but it's just other things that interest me to put forth the effort. But they wanted me. I still have the receipts. I have the emails, the communication, the thread with them. They really wanted me to write for them over there and push out articles. I actually wrote for a magazine briefly. And even with that, the head person, they was trying to tell me, okay, you need to do this and shorten this and do that. And they wanted me to slowly but surely reconstruct it to fit, a certain avenue. And they didn't want to tell me initially, but with every article I submitted, they'd be like, can you make this sound like this, this, and this? So really, you're not writing your article. You're writing the article, but it's not considered yours when it's going through a any type of other reading material or a media segue that you can source from a search engine. Anyway, moving on. What I did find out with these promotions is that initially when I was coming through, they used to talk about numbers. Okay, let's talk about the numbers, the quantification. When people say numbers, they would say 2 is higher than 1, right? 10 is higher than 2. 100 is higher than 5, right? You get the gist of what I'm saying. So the higher the number, to some people, the value is much more greater. Okay? Stay with me. So this, when I start to have a little conversation with some people at certain promotions, and they was like, hey, numbers mean everything. You wouldn't approve for this credential. You need to build up your channel. Right? So I knew some people who also did media with me, who had channels that had purchased their viewership. Right? But I didn't say anything. It just wasn't going to be me, because I can care less. I could spend money on a whole lot of other stuff, but I'm not going to be purchasing views just to get approved. I did it the hard way, right? So I asked them, I said, you do know that's not true value. That's not raw numbers when it comes down to media, to viewership. It's just really your content can be pushed out and people can view it. But just because you want to look and see the subscriber value, that doesn't properly represent the channel itself, because there's no way that you can inventory those subscribers to validate that each one of them is a real person. So I started learning that when they deny you for a credential and you start to get familiar with some of the media outlets and faces, you get an understanding of who is in charge of this site right here. Check their subscriber rate. Okay, if I can't get approved and they're approved, then I want to check and see who they are. And what I was finding out is it didn't have anything to do if you was a former veteran or whatever. It didn't have any shit to do with that. It had something to do if you was willing to conform. If they can get some media over there that can talk very heavy about their promotion. This is not all the promotions, but this is what I start to find out, right? So I remember a certain individual for a big fight was approved and I wasn't. So I remember also this specific person that was approving credentials said, hey, we go off numbers and that, if the big fights are here, certain media outlets will get the check mark because of their numbers. That was BS. The reason why that was BS is the fact that there are people that are being approved that doesn't even have 1,000 subscribers yet. The reason why they was being approved because there was a link between them and another outlet. And that outlet, yeah, we can say it had the numbers. No names mentioned over here. But that particular outlet had numbers. And then what they was doing was birthing other micro outlets that was still attached to them, but under a different name. But yet they was allowing them to network, knowing that they was building up this freaking perimeter. And you're trying to tell me you're not smart enough to figure this out? You're trying to tell me you're not smart enough? So I'm calling BS on you have to have the numbers to do this, because you're approving people that's attached or linked up to another media outlet, and they're having people in many places in your promotion, which is pretty much limiting you. limiting your visibility. And that's what started to happen with these promotions. They start to allow certain people to do this and the other. Now, perfect example of that, when Wilder fought Tyson Fury. When Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury, I seen a promotion approve UK media. UK media flooded. This is the US. UK media flooded. And they said, no, 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 no. To a lot of US media that had the subs, that had the experience, that had the familiar biometrics. You know how their face and pupils look. They've been there before covering your fights. And you denied them credentials. Why? Because you wanted a heavy UK media presence. If that is not some malarkey, I don't know what is, y'all. That's when I said, man, this media shit, it has some potholes. Real talk. When you're in these boxing streets and trying to cover the sport, there's a lot of deep potholes, man, that will absolutely try to have you running flats. Because the reason why I say that is because they have very little consistency on the ones who is going out here actually covering the boxers with genuine intent, rather than the ones who are linked up and just going out there and their main purpose is this: to ask the controversial questions, to try to get a reaction so they can put a description up there to draw people in. Instead of it being, let's just say, 15 separate media outlets covering a fight, you may have 8 media outlets, and how it leads up to 15 is because 1 or 2 prominent media outlets have micro outlets, sub outlets out there with different names getting approved through a connection. And the people at the promotion knows this, but they don't care because it allows for the numbers. They say the numbers. If this outlet has numbers, then those sublets that they have going on, those sub outlets, they're going to bring back more information in different areas. So they give them the credentials and allow them free reign access to cover areas that a person like me is not going to get as independent media. And that's another thing that, I do praise myself as doing as independent. I never had somebody working with me or anything. So when people saw me, I had multiple camera bodies. I had a backpack on my back, and I was out here doing this shit myself. As I started to see the change, I said to myself, okay, let me venture off more into other promotional areas and stuff like that. And I was already doing it. I covered bare knuckle fighting. I covered mixed martial arts. I covered the boxing promotions. I covered BJJ tournaments. All that shit is in my catalog. I have a better time, which is conducive to covering combat sports, doing it on my own, not having to answer to nobody, moving as I may. But the only people that stops that from happening is the people that approve your credentials. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I have had one of, the worst experience in censorship when it comes to people understanding that you're not willing to kiss their ass. If you're not willing to kiss ass and just be rah, 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 all hyped up just because you proved me for my credential, I'm supposed to come in and kiss ass. No, that's not going to happen. I had a individual attempt to remind me or introduce me to how media goes. I never met the lady in my life, but it came to a point in time where I had a Wilder shirt on, and I still have the video to this day. And if I release that video, okay, yeah, she's going to look entirely bad. Entirely bad. She saw me with a Deontay Wilder to this day shirt on. I didn't see no problem with it. He was the main event. And she said, "Who are you?" "I'm so and so." "What do you have that shirt on for?" Like it was like look, like my shirt had rips in it, and it was just unaccommodating. I said, "What does this have to do with media?" I said, "It's my clothing." And what I did was support Wilder when he opened up a store in Flatbush, and Deontay Wilder. It was a great store. I was there for the grand opening, right? And she told me, "No, you need to take that off. You can't be media and showing favoritism to fighters." I was like, "What?" It's media that shows favoritism to the fighter all the time. UK come over here, they cover their fighters. They don't cover the US fighters. It's US media that come over here and cover their favorite fighters. You see it a lot. Even more relevant to the day, the ones that are still in the game. So she walked away. She came back in there. She said, "You didn't hear me?" Now, granted, I'm military. I show up early to shit. I show up early. Why? Because I want to get some of this media. I want to get, I'll go fishing. I want to try to hook something good, see if a team is rolling through. Or I can get, a team come through early, because the team always get there early. The fighters always get there early. And sometimes, the early bird get the worm, man. And, I love fishing. So I was there early. So she came back over there and said, "Hey, did you hear me?" I said, "Go change that shirt." I said, "Yeah, we got like so much time left before the doors open. I'm chilling." "No, you need to leave and take that shirt." I say, "The shirt isn't bothering nobody." And she came up in my face with security over there and started trying to yell at me. I say, "Are you crazy?" She didn't know I was recording though. And I had my phone directly in front of her face. And she's just up there all in my face. "Did you hear me? I said you need to go, and you're still here. You're not going to get in the fight card because you got that shirt on. I don't know who you are or what it is. If you was approved for credentials, you won't be getting credentials with that shirt on and all that." I said, "Get out of here," and just talking to me crazy. I could have did some bad things to her because I felt like she was in my space. She needs to be happy that, with the counseling that I do receive, that I de-escalated the situation mentally, because she was in my space. This female was up in my face like she found out that I had a baby on the way by another chick that she knew that working under the same promotion. Like she really used to that shit. And I looked over at security, and the security is like, "Damn, you didn't even do anything. Like, what's this about?" Anyway, moving forward, I saw a change in certain promotions and how they approve media. That was an eye-opening for me with that idiot. It wasn't just her, but it's certain movers that corral media at these fights under the same umbrella, and they will have you will see them talking to certain media outlets, or certain media outlets getting a certain color on their credential. If we're media, we should be able to move as we please. If you have one media guy that's going around with total access on the floor asking dumbass questions, then what's wrong with another media that outlet that doesn't have the numbers, that's more than physically capable to go around and ask for interviews when that person is doing it too? I really don't like how they try to censor certain media just because they don't see how you're benefiting them. Like, we want some quid pro quo. I want scratch my back, I scratch your back. What can you do for us? We don't see enough ass kissing. We don't just see you surrendering like we want you to. We want to see some type of submission. So when I found out that it was slowly but surely changing, and they start, not all of them, of course. There is a solid promotion out there that I enjoy working with. I enjoy working with Top Rank. I ain't gonna lie. I absolutely enjoy it. I found out that media, not so much Top Rank, but media in general, even on social media, if you are attempting to apply for credentials, it's not the way it was when I was coming, that we thought that it was based off your hard work and effort to go up here and interview these fighters, get the content, post it at the promotion, and they can see your content. It wasn't just about this, oh, you got to have the numbers, because I put that shit to bed. I had a conversation with somebody and I asked them, hey, I put in for a fight. I didn't get approved. They said, well, we mostly approve the outlets with this amount of numbers. I said, I just want to explain something to you. You do know there's a method for which you can purchase subscribers, and that subscriber count doesn't register real organic influx in your subscriber count. They say, yeah, I understand everything you're saying, but when the person that's approving credentials, they don't care anything about that. They just look at the numbers and they say, okay. So what you're telling me is, if I purchase subscribers all the way up to 50, 60, 70, when it comes time for me to get credentials and you know my face, I have a better chance of being approved. If you see a high subscriber count, yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, because we don't have time to go through everybody's videos. That's why when you fill out a credential, a lot of these cats don't even know what it's like to fill out a credential. A lot of these cats, they end up tagging along with a certain fighter or team and allowed them, hey, can you hook me up? Can you hook me up? I didn't get that. I got it out the goddamn, from the bottom. I went to fights with no credentials and still got the interviews, and then end up getting approved for credentials, from one promotion, then the next promotion, and, building up my catalog. That's how it worked. But that person told me, if we look at an account and it says 60K subscribers and we know your face, boom, we've proven you. Well, that's partially true. If they have a fight like Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, or any fighter like a Mexican superstar or something like that, they are extremely biased. They would get most of the Mexican media to come over there and support, because they feel like that's a broader reach, having people that speak two languages, right? Speaking to these guys who may only speak primarily Espanol, and there's nothing wrong with that. I tell people all the time, it's always good to know more than one language. But recently, we have had Riyadh season. And Riyadh season, to a lot of people, they have seen the movement. You know what I'm saying? They have seen activity take place. They have seen somewhat of a new regime bleed over into the U.S. market, having all these promoters affiliate themselves. So now we're coming to a point where what seems to be enticing initially, now certain entities that have been thriving without Riyadh season or the ring now are coming to find out that some of these movements that they're seeing should be considered hostile. And the reason why I'm saying it is that if you have established, let's just say, an outlet that people frequent all the time, and your information has been looked upon, searched, and freaking regurgitated, you know what I'm saying, regenerated out to the general public. All the articles, they go to Boxing Scene and everybody else. They consider you a validated, legitimate boxing outlet, where the information that you put out on these fights are valid, organic, right? But what happens when a new entity come in and attempts to source or extract your people that you have built up? They have helped you form this team that understands what your intent is. They understand the mission, but yet you find out it's a dirty game out here. It's even a dirty game for those who doesn't step through the ropes, but the ones who are from the outside looking in, and they allow their journalistic skills to bleed out to the general public about the particular fight, a fight card that just happened? What about betrayal? Because you're talking about doing everything right, but then again, you have individuals secretly trying to extract members that's a part of a media outlet that people consider to be one of the best out here today. They're trying to source them to come over with numbers. They're trying to source them to come over and work for them. Let's get down to it. Let's get down to it. Man, it is absolutely a very unique scandal going on that has nothing to do with the actual fighters. We're seeing the actual fighters go through scandals a little bit, but this is even worse because I've been following BoxingScene.com for quite some time. And just to see what they're going through right now with their credentials not being approved for specific fights is unacceptable. This is BoxingScene.com, and watch when I tell you this is a very good article by Boxing Scene. See, a lot of content creators are gonna continue to talk about the same stuff all the time. Who's fighting who might fight who ain't fighting who, but they're not gonna talk about what's supposed to be their engine. This is supposed to be their engine. Talking about boxing, having a voice out here in these streets. This is supposed to be their engine. You know what I'm saying? This is supposed to be your engine. Having an outlet to push out information. Now, yes, there's a lot of shit that's distorted out here, but pay attention to what BoxingScene.com had to say in accordance to not being credentialed for the Chris Eubanks and Conor Benn fight card, y'all. And this is not the first time they have been blackballed. It said Boxing Scene had hoped to be on site to bring you coverage of this weekend's event in London and the bill headlined by Chris Eubanks Jr. and Conor Benn. But the organizers of the ring event have chosen not to accredit this outlet. Once again, the ring event has chosen not to accredit this outlet. If Boxing Scene can't get a credit, what do you think about all these other people? Shout out to Showbiz the Dope, man. He's not just doing interviews. He's actually, having one-on-ones, 1v1s, outside of his media scope here on YouTube. I see him. He's doing his thing. He's working. He's hired. Boxing Scene was not declined a pass. Okay, pay attention. They was not declined a pass. Nor have we been told the media section is oversubscribed. What is oversubscribed? That is a term that is used quite often to deny you. It's saying, oh, there's so many media outlets, so many submissions that it's been oversubscribed. We only have a certain amount of quota to approve boxing media for this fight. Which the wild part about it is that when I was in this game, I had a camera. And I said, I don't want to sit on the floor with these guys with a laptop. I want to take pictures. That's why, that's how I circumvented my way around certain things. To get in and go to the photographer's box where there was very limited people up there shooting fights. Real talk. But even then, you get told they're oversubscribed. It goes on to say, and has been the case previously. At the time of this writing, we have simply not received a response to our applications to cover both fight week and the night itself. Oh, what do you mean? Both fight week and the night itself. For those of you who cover fights, let me be a little bit more descriptive. When you're submitting for credentials, you can be approved for a press conference or a weigh-in. You can be approved credentials for that press conference, weigh-ins, but you can be denied for fight night. Fight night is the culminating moment for which you wanted to show up. You spent your money, your flight, your whole entire itinerary to say, you know what? They didn't approve me for fight night, but if I go there, maybe I can talk to someone. That's just some of the intricate details for content creators will tell you if they've been to fights, but you can't tell these cats that. But that's what Boxing Scene is talking about. To our applications to cover both Fight Week and all the events that they had at Fight Week, which covers everything up to the weigh-in, and then Fight Night is separate. It goes on to say, a big part of me doesn't want to go down this route, explaining why Boxing Scene is not at these events, but I feel we owe our readership. Man, talk that talk, Boxing Scene. Talk that talk, man. Look how well eloquently this put the language on how the delivery is laid out. Not too harsh, abrasive, but straight to the point and being very articulate and expressing themselves to the GP, the general public. It says not everyone is entitled to accreditation, but Boxing Scene has previously been able to work uninhibited with working press passes in Saudi Arabia and at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. Now, why would they be prohibited to do their job? Somebody explain that to me. Why would this all of a sudden be a case? We're going to find out. It gets very interesting moving forward. It gets extremely interesting. To be honest, let's keep it moving. It say we were not accredited for Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois. Although we did receive an email beforehand about our coverage. And then we were told Arthur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol 2 was oversubscribed. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. That long word, oversubscribed. That means too many people put in for it. And Boxing Scene, the grand kahunas, the grandiose of boxing media, did not receive a response. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can get denied without them even replying. Bars. Sometimes you can get denied without them ever happen to reply. And then sometimes when they do reply, you're oversubscribed. It says this week, our applications filed through Boxers and Matchroom, which both had us at shows in Nottingham and Birmingham, respectively, last week, have been left unanswered, y'all. Has left unanswered, bro. Having spoke to several people linked with the event, fingers have been pointed to each of the groups involved with accreditation, and we are no further forward. Boxing Scene has been and will continue to be critical of events, subjects, fighters, promoters, and anything else we deem, when we deem the facts call for it. In the same way, we, as an editorial organization, are critical of others, promoters, and indeed fighters and other associated figures when necessary. Those other promoters know and expect it and probably resent us for some of our resent us for some of our criticism. But they also know that it comes from a desire to improve the sport for the health of fighters and benefit of consumers. Hold up. It gets interesting because Boxing Scene is standing on business. Boxing Scene is standing on integrity. You know what I'm saying? When they say, but they also know that it comes from a desire. Man, look how they wording this, man. To improve the sport for the health of fighters and benefit of the consumers. Man, a lot of you all should take this article right here and understand how to address your concerns with decorum and not just be so quick to lose your temper and go on a profanity-laced tirade like you don't have any common sense. It goes on to say boxing scene remains independent and impartial, and we are within our rights to discuss the subjects that we understand are increasingly taboo, including freedom of the media and sports washing. Ooh, look. They are walking around with some lit torch. This is a torch lit article. This article is on fire, smoking from a distance, God damn it. Forget SOS. The way they're talking and being extremely descriptive with this, the terminology for which they're using to explain their target presidents when they're speaking to the public, perfecto. It goes on to say, this column is not a declaration of war, nor a sign or submission, but a lamentable indictment of the shift in journalism away from a traditional version that has long been established and respected. Even if sometimes grudgingly, this isn't only in boxing either. It is rapidly spreading across the sporting landscape. It is unfashionable for journalists to ask hard questions. There it is. Journalists asking hard questions, depending on what's your nesting bed, this plays out the way it does. Depending on what your nesting bed is. If your nesting bed is boxing, then when it says unfashionable for journalists to ask hard questions, yes, you hear a lot of people on here. I want to ask the hard questions. We've seen that shit happen. We've seen it happen so many times where it's a one-off. That's why I say a lot of these voices that's on social media are not journalists. All they are is a snapshot. They want a one shot to talk to somebody that they never met in person and to have a controversial moment and hope that controversy continue to root over and go viral in other places. So they're not trying to sustain a relationship of communication. All they want to do is get one shot and then hopefully go viral and get a reaction out of the person and move on to the next. But see, the popularity of these entities that they want to interview, the depth is quite shallow, to be honest. So when they talk about it is unfashionable for journalists to ask hard questions. It is far more fashionable to want to be friends with the figures who are meant to be covered with a discerning eye. That means kissing ass. And hey, look at somebody who wasn't. I used to be off in the cut, chilling. And some fighters really didn't gravitate to me because I would say, hey, what's going on? And keep it moving. I didn't have to have lunch with you. I didn't have to have lunch. I didn't want to go up to your suite. Because if you take me up to your suite for an exclusive, I want to continue. Wherever I see you, I want that access. That's why I never wanted it. Because I knew it was impossible if if I was to remain neutral a little bit, just like boxing scene, and it said it's being fashionable to be friends, to be allies with these boxers. So when you speak of them all the time, like you hear certain voices on here, notice I say voices, because I don't want to say they're content creators, because a lot of what they say tell me they're content creators. They got to have a huge volume of hate for one fighter, and then the fighter that they're so-called fashionable with, they will talk all great things. So if that fighter possibly contending against a fighter that they don't like, they'll trash the other fighter. This happens all the time. It's taboo. Real talk. Let's go on. It said boxing scene. We are a group of writers and editors, individuals, no less, who have no agenda aside from being objective and truthful to ourselves and our readers. Most of our staff has been professional journalists for more than a decade. In fact, the majority of us have been doing it for 2 decades and some for longer. Man, talk, y'all. Talk. Talk that talk. Although some of us might have endured several nuclear spats with promoters and managers, none of us before have been accused of having an agenda. Man, this is unbelievable. This is just amazing, overlay of what they're really thinking and what they've been through in this media game. These media expeditions, man, they write stories. God damn. When you covering boxing and you're on these media expeditions, they write stories, yo. They write stories with your memory. Your memory writes stories based off your experiences. And believe me, what they're talking about, nuclear spats, I totally understand where you're coming from. It goes on. We at Boxing Scene will continue to do what we believe is right. And we stand up for the things we believe in and do everything in our power to cover these events with the same robust details and passion for the sport to which our readers have become accustomed. Boxing Scene will be here for the fans, the fighters, and those in the business. We will tell the stories. We will write the columns. We will interview without prejudice, focusing on what we are doing and trying to be the best that we can be without focusing on what others are doing and in spite of what others might try to do to us. This right here, in my opinion, this 3-line para is one of the most stinging, telling, more profound segments of this article, because it basically gives you an understanding of who they are and what their integrity entails. They're basically telling you what their integrity is. How do they rate their integrity? What are they thinking? How they being consistent, moving as a unit. What they've been consistent in doing up to this point that have worked for BoxingScene.com. I like how they said it enough to the point I have to read it over again. It said Boxing Scene will be here for the fans, the fighters, and those in the business. We will tell the stories. We will write the columns. We will interview without prejudice, y'all. Even though we see all this, like, we will interview without prejudice, focusing on what we are doing and trying to be the best that we can be without focusing on what others are doing and in spite of what others might try to do to us. That is absolutely a grandeur articulation. Yet our publication, after scooping a 1-2-3 for event coverage at the recent BWAA, y'all, Boxing Writers Association of America Awards, will not be at this weekend's event featuring Ben Eubank. Why? Why were you all denied? Why was your submission left unanswered? Somebody explain this to me. Why was a media powerhouse like BoxingScene.com submissions left unanswered? Who would do such a thing? What's going on internally? I know there's probably bits and pieces that I'm not sure that's going on, but what I can say is when they say without prejudice, without it's not being fashionable by having an alliance, so to speak, with a fighter, I can understand that Boxing Scene is no way, shape, or form close to being in the same bubble as Boxing News 24. They don't write those type of articles, but they have received awards. They have been recognized for their media generalship. It goes on to say our colleagues in the boxing media, have told us about a campaign to sabotage Boxing Scene. Once again, our colleagues, okay? Colleagues can be other existing thriving media outlets, right? Individuals who you can consider your compeers, who are pretty much exercising the same media generalship as yourself, media submissions, going out here on these itineraries and covering the sport of boxing. Their colleagues have told them to beware. You know what I'm saying? Our colleagues in boxing have told us about a campaign to sabotage boxingscene.com. Imagine the internal combat that is going on from someone who is supposed to have the freedom of press. Think about this, y'all. They supposed to have the freedom of press, but yet someone's trying to sabotage one of the workhorses of boxing media. Why? I don't gather why there should be interruption. If it's interruption just based off, I want some of your people. It goes on to say, our colleagues in the boxing media have told us about a campaign to sabotage boxing scene. Several staff members have resisted overtures to join the ring, and this column is merely a commentary, in my UK voice, commentary on how things have gone and a signpost to where things are seemingly going. At Boxing Scene, what we're trying to do is our jobs. We have, in this staff, first year on the site, work hard to create a world-class team. And that was reflected with the recent 18 award citations by the BWAA, which we think is a testament to industry recognition of our objectivity, professionalism, and quality. Talk that talk. Talk that talk. You know what I'm saying? This is clear, concise, and straight to the point. Unfortunately, there is a bit of concern, shabby concern, to be honest. You know, it just goes to show you, you can build a foundation from the bottom up, and you can put those pieces, those selected pieces together on how you want the whole floor plan to be. And that floor plan is built up nicely for Boxing Scene. But now we have other entities that from the outside, some of these voices have pretty much said, hey, I'm looking at this from a point where I'm just worrying about what Riyadh and the ring is doing with the boxers. But imagine this type of war that's going on, y'all. Imagine this war going on that's not talked about that much. Media. Imagine this, yo. This is what people don't want to talk about. They're not going to talk about how they source information from Boxing Scene over and over and over again, but they're not going to go through an article line for line and give them their credit. They're not. They would sit up here and use their content over and over again and would never acknowledge that they are a quality boxing powerhouse when it comes to the media. Boxing Scene is a boxing powerhouse. It's a lot of voices out here in this social media who have sourced and extracted information from Boxing Scene, but yet they're not going to come on here and make it be known and what's going on and how they're standing on their 10. They're basically standing tall on their 10 and saying, we won't be bullied. No matter what you're trying. Their colleagues have told them it's a potential sabotage, a campaign to sabotage Boxing Scene that's out there. It said, is every article a home run? No. Is every day on the site awesome? No. Do we make mistakes? Yes. Can we please everyone? No. Perfectly articulated. No disjointed context here. People are not turning their head to the side trying to figure out where they're going with this. Boxing scene is legitimate. Their articles are extremely organic and straight to the point, and it pretty much stays consistent with talking about boxing in general. You hear them talking about a plethora of boxers throughout the sport. They're not just talking about specific boxers, and every time they talk about that boxer, it's something negative. That's what you get from other collective freaking outlets, but not boxing scene, though. Not boxing scene. And if you are a so-called boxing content creator out here, you a voice out here in this social media, you should talk about this article, because I know damn near everybody has sourced the article or sourced information from this platform, but yet they won't do, they're not going to exercise their right for freedom of press to speak on this particular article right here. But you know what? I'll do it. It says, we see the comments. We know how divisive topics, fights, and fighters are. Once again, we see the comments. We know how divisive topics, fights, and fighters are. And our job is to create debate, apply critical thought, and tell engaging stories. None of that would change. Alice, this week, it won't be from ringside. And give a shout out to Tris Dixon. This was published yesterday. Tris Dixon, who wrote this article. Shout out to you, man. Whoever you are, Miss, whoever you are. Very, very well articulated article, line for line. And the reason I felt like it should be spoken on, because yes, this is a source that we utilize for free now, for free. At any given time, it don't matter if a debate is going on, man. They're coming over here. Then let me go to boxing scene right quick. You know how many thousands upon thousands upon thousands of conversations have had based off the ranking system, based off the sublets of boxing scene, where the information is available to you. Not just any information. I'm talking about information that is up to date, accurate information, articles that speak in a healthy manner about fighters and their fights, with checks and balances. But yet there's a war. There's a campaign, as they said, where is out to sabotage boxing scene. You say to yourself, damn, from an outside entity who read boxing scene articles all the time. And, I do read the other one, but that's just purposely to let you know, hey, there's a difference here. You have extreme bias to a segue, a media outlet like boxing scene that pretty much delivers you content without prejudice. And that should be respected. But getting back to the zip line that I was on earlier, when it comes to media accreditation, it has become so diluted, extremely diluted in prejudice in politics, where they're sourcing people that really don't know shit about boxing. And for a media powerhouse like boxing scene to not be approved, to be left unanswered, is a way that they're saying, no, you may be able to get away with this otherwise, but guess what? If I can basically sabotage boxing scene and make phone calls so you won't be able to go to some of your comfort zones over there and cover fights, you know what I'm saying? We're going to break you down to the point where we're going to place some restrictions on you, because money talks, unfortunately. But from what I'm gathering here, it seems like the ones that they was trying to source to leave boxing scene, they maintain their alliance. They understand what it took for them to get there. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought this article was absolutely grandiloquent and informative. And I just want to basically put it out there to these individuals that claim to be media connoisseurs, right? If you're not going trying to submit for credentials on the regular and getting approved so you can really experience how this shit works and how fucked up it is, you're not doing too much, you know? Let me go over here to the chat right quick. Shout out to everybody pulled up. Arnold Brown on deck. Mr. Gumbo, aka Hot Grease, in the building. Shout out to my brother. You know, thanks for that cologne, man. You know, changed a lot of females' lives down here. Hey, Eclipse 330, what's good with your square? How you feeling, man? The media a bunch of glazers and haters. You know, the wild part about what you said, I can't disagree, man. I'm talking about from my own observation. I've been there. You know, I've had people want you, like, I'm independent media. You're not paying for anything for me. You know, so it's very limited backlash that I'm willing to take. Just because you approve me based off me covering fights previously. You know, look, all it takes is a legitimate, consistent work ethic when you're on deck for fight week. I've seen some cats that only shows up for the weigh-ins. And they really not even approved. I mean, they may be approved for the weigh-in and fight night, but they'll go to the weigh-in, and then once the weigh-in is over, they don't even stand around for little media scrums. They just want to go there so they can say they was at the fight. They're doing media. That's not media. But that's neither here nor there. Shout out to Jamal Neezy in the building. What it do, bro? Shout out to the OG Bruce Gas Boxing Jazz and more. Salute to you. I just thought it was imperative for me to speak about this because they're feeling the crunch, man. They're feeling the wrath of censorship. And even though we have a constitution, you ask yourself, how can there be restrictions placed on a entity, okay? A media, a press entity. How can you place restrictions when it comes to them just covering a single sport? If the Constitution says the First Amendment provides me freedom of press, how can a sabotage even be permitted so easily? This is one of the lifelines that people not paying attention to. Like, it's almost like they're trying to put them on freaking life support, to be honest. They're gonna say, if we restrict the branches that you have built and you have grown over time through hard work and dedication, if we just deprive you of that, you know, internal to what you have built, somebody's going to start to break, and we're going to be able to get those individuals running over to us for employment or to make money. I don't know how the process works, but I just felt like it's very commendable that Boxing Scene put out this article. It's unfortunate from them to not be approved for these credentials, because they damn well should be one of the media entities that get approved for anything they want when it comes to boxing media. Why? Because we need solid journalism. We need individuals that can sit up here and be extremely scripted, non-prejudiced, and pull out content that people find fashionable, like the words that Boxing Scene use, and they stay consistent. They stay consistent with it. Boxing media is a fracas, bro. They have a team. Imagine what I had to go through independently. They have a team, and they're being wrangled in this manner. Imagine that. Is it all about the content? Because they put out damn good content. That ain't enough to the point where now you have emails going unanswered, applying for accreditation. So that's basically saying, just like Boxing Scene said, they wasn't denied, but the confirmation is no confirmation. The confirmation you're not approved is them not saying anything. They're submitting for credentials and it's being left unanswered. That is confirmation that you've been denied without them actually inserting anything in there in text, anything, audio, any type of evidence. That is what you call confirmation without confirmation. And that's a brutal reality, but it happens, yo. It happens. And I just wanted to kind of talk to you all about this internal this internal battle that's going on with Boxing Scene. You know, this guy, man, from over there, he's really, shuffling the deck a lot. And since you have a lot of journalists, so-called content creators, though, that's not really at the table to see how this card game is going, the only way you're going to find out is through articles like this. Not only are boxers being made aware, like we've seen with Shakur Stevenson, and everything that's going on with certain shifts, certain so-called favorable or bias that's going on. Now it seems like they really are trying to monopolize strictly off projected press. They took the ring out of the ownership of Oscar with a buyout, and they're trying to strip down a powerhouse of boxing media by saying, we're going to take away some of your lifeline. We're going to take away how you eat. We're going to take away those resources from which you're eating from. If we do this and you begin to starve for content, then guess what? Maybe you'll come over here just like everybody else and bend the knee. And we know how important press is. We need a press outlet like Boxing Scene. We need that. We absolutely need them. Well, exclude Boxing Scene and put the other boxing news up here. Imagine reading their articles every day on how demented they are. Imagine reading the prejudice that they put out, the rhetoric that they spew out to the public vice what Boxing Scene put out. We're talking about organized, updated, consistent, timely manner. All their content is commendable and award worthy. But yet they're going through a process with it being disapproved for credentials by them not even answering their request. That's messed up, bro. They're leaving the request unanswered. If that ain't a way to prove to people that, hey, man, you got to come through a channel. It's just like boxing being non-regulated, right? Who are you going to complain to at the top of the food chain? Well, the same thing with Boxing Scene. Who are they going to complain? You're not going to complain to anybody except what you do best. You're going to put out an article like this, and you're going to let the public, you're going to have the public acknowledge your concerns. And any sound-minded individual can read this information and say, yeah, we understand. That's unfair. That's very much unfair. And then they're trying to source some of the members. They're trying to sabotage, the sabotage campaign of Boxing Scene. That's not good. But anyway, at the end of the day, I appreciate y'all for pulling up as always. You know, it's always good to come over here and speak about these current topics. Some of them are very healthy, for real. Some of them are very helpful and enlightening. And some of them will put you in a panic attack. I'm going to be honest. It happens. Some will leave you filming because I'm pretty sure a lot of them at boxing scene is saying, we've done everything we're supposed to. But once again, it's not all about doing what's right. It's not always about doing what's right. It's all about people wanting you to follow a specific agenda. And when you have individuals that anybody can eat from the sport of boxing, I say this all the time about the tree of life. You have fighters coming from all walks of life. There's so many people that can eat from the boxing tree of life that you won't even know what's going on until it affects what you've been doing, the dedication and commitment that you've been putting into the sport. When that begins to affect you, now you say, okay, why are you coming from me? Why? Because you are an important entity. You meet all the qualifications. You're the best out here. Boxing scene is the best out there. They don't come up here with a vacancy of thought, trying to decide who should we target first. Should we target Boxing News or should we target BoxingScene.com? Which one? Help us out. No, it's easy. It's an easy decision. They're going to go strictly to Boxing Scene, not to compliment them, not to invite them, continue to approve their freaking credentials. No. We are now at a point where media is supposed to be the good and the bad, the yin and the yang. But now boxing is taking a turn where you absolutely have a person that's trying to monopolize. And first they come for the sport, which is easy. But now they're trying to come and take over a media outlet, one of the powerhouse of boxing media. They're trying to say, if you won't give it to us, if you won't surrender, then we'll do everything to make you submit. We'll start being, that thorn in your side. We'll start being that Achilles heel. We'll start showing you that there's other ways to permit you from covering the sport. There's other ways. They'll say, we want to prove you for media credentials. You have to source your information from a third party instead of being there on site and your people relaying that information back to you ASAP. We're going to delay the progress right now because you all won't come over here and help us out. Imagine going through that shit where you done built this media outlet up and you're the best that's out there. And now comes a foreign entity that wants to change everything up. And money can't buy everything, but it sure can persuade people to do ungodly type of actions. It will persuade people to go through a situation where they're tormenting others, where they're causing conflict of others just based off money. How much money did it take to say, no, we're not going to approve them. We're going to teach them a lesson. And then they say, what? I thought it was all about the numbers. Boxing scene don't have to deal with numbers. They are a powerhouse in this. They don't have to deal like the YouTube social media channels. No, they're the big dogs. They have an entire team. But unfortunately, it's not about the technique. It's strictly about the principle. It ain't all about technique because boxing scene has a technique. It's all about the principle. The principle is we want you to surrender. We acknowledge that you're the powerhouse. You're number one out here, but we want control over that. We want a piece of that. We want to strong arm you now. We want to let you know there's a new goddamn general on the block. We ain't trying to take over. We just want to control what you got going on. We don't want to take over. We just want to show you that you can grow even higher with us. That's all. That's all. Nothing complicated. We just want you to understand that we're going to be running the ship. We're going to be at the bow. That's all. That's all. You know what I'm saying? That's all. We ain't going to do too much. But man, I'm about to get to this boxing. Y'all hold it down. Continue to support the channel. Shout out to the OG Golden. Salute to you, big dog. I see you in the building. Y'all hit the replay. Shout out to Boxing Scene. I hope y'all get through this. You are the powerhouses of freaking boxing media. I hope y'all don't falter too hard with what's going on between them and Ring and being denied access to Conor Ben and Eubanks. I hope they get through it. I hope they get through it. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.